welcome to Bonus Section Heroes Read RPG Reddit Stories. You can also listen to this in podcast format, just search for Bonus Section Heroes wherever you get your podcasts. This episode we discuss homebrews to help the players build more interesting characters. How to help our fighter feel important. Again, I think I found a story for you. This story is from the user Delphox26 on RD&D. Despite rolling the best stats out of all of us by far, our fighter is facing the age-old problem of feeling inadequate next to a team of spellcasters. Basically anything he gets, we either got earlier than him or got something way cooler. For instance, we just hit level 5, where he got extra attack, and our wizard got fireball. Even before level 5, I, the cleric, had spiritual weapon, which was essentially extra attack, except the damage was force. I used wisdom to attack and could hit an enemy several tiles away. Even as a tank, our abjuration wizard and my shield and splint armor is more effective. How can we help him feel like a valuable member of the party? Our DM has already implemented optional rules that make life better for martial classes like flanking and cleaving, and even with them, he doesn't feel important. So this is relevant to Matt, because if you look at our Icewind Dale campaign, he plays a barbarian called Tok, who we love, who is here.
Where is he? Can your new camera focus on him?
Oh, I don't know if it's that good.
He's an icy boy. Yeah, we do love him. But he could have easily been two-dimensional, I think. It is a problem with martial classes in D&D, in that as you get higher in levels, all you get is more of what you've already got, largely, I think. So a lot of people will say, if you're new, play a fighter, play a barbarian, because they're simpler.
You don't have to learn all of the spells and what they do.
Exactly. But that does come with a challenge in something that I had with Tok quite regularly was, everyone else would be taking a minute, 2 minutes with their turn, figuring out what to do, where to cast the spell, and then I'll be like, I'll hit twice, hit them with the blunt end. Okay, I'm done. Occasionally do an opportunity attack. Occasionally, do something to inspire or whatever it was. Yeah, there isn't a lot. I think subclass can have a lot of effect with a fighter. So things like Battle Master gives you more things to do, gives you maneuvers and more options.
I generally play spellcasters because I find them more interesting. They have utility as well as combat. But I was playing a Blood Hunter the other day, and I thought, this is great. This is because they have curses and the Crimson Rights, they can do the extra damage. I thought, this is a lot more versatile than just playing a straightforward fighter. No, we did several combats, and I experienced what you experienced. I was still going, once I've set off my curses, once I've set off my Crimson Right, I hit him again.
Yeah.
I hit him hard, and I hit him 3 times, but I hit him again.
Yeah, as long as you get a buzz out of doing high damage, hey. And it's the same with all
I felt valued, but yeah, I can see how playing that over and over and over again is going to take a toll.
If you play every week, it's going to get dull fast. But I think the easiest way, if you don't want a homebrew, is give the fighter some magical items that give them some extra utility. I think about Dave in my original Out of the Abyss game, and he had multiple magic objects that allowed him spell-like abilities. I think he was largely quite happy. As he went up in the levels, he was hitting harder and harder. He had a decent magical weapon. But I gave him some abilities that let him do the mushroom equivalent of tree stride, for example. So in a battle, he could literally run through a mushroom and out of another one. He became hyper mobile on the battlefield. It let him move around really quickly. Felt like really useful that he could get anywhere. But I also think you have to remember that the tank's job is to get in the way, is to take the hits, is to be a meat shield.
I'm more than a human shield!
So if the combats aren't giving the fighter the opportunity to do that, perhaps need to look at the setup of the battles that you're putting out there.
So this very good comment from user Yojo. How many encounters are you having per adventuring day? Good DMs need to make sure they actually tax the party's resources. Sure, fireball is often better than swinging a sword twice, but that wizard can only do it at most twice in a 24-hour period at this level. Meanwhile, the fighter is able to keep on swinging all day long.
Yeah, exactly. And the fighter also has things that return on a short rest. So second wind, action surge, things like that. So, and again, it's similar with monks. You know, if you run D&D as every encounter is deadly and there's no gradual reduction of resource, it's just take it all in one go, you're also disadvantaging those classes because you're taking away their power. I think optional rules is the way to go. There are some good rules out there which let you do things like, and this is something I've done in my own RPG in Pandoran League, the Victorian horror, Gothic horror RPG, is that different weapons have different effects and different critical effects. So, for example, a mace might have potential to knock someone prone or stagger them backwards. You know, a sword might cause a bleed effect, which could have some sort of mechanical effect. It does involve homebrewing or finding the rules to do it. I think the other thing that you can do, which I saw, which was really nice, is when you have a melee class, you kind of give them an opportunity to make the combat more heroic. So I don't know, let's say the fighter's fighting someone in a cavern and there might be a huge boulder, and they might say, right, I want to run up the boulder, leap off, and hit them with my sword. So you can
Parkour.
kind of so you can give them an acrobatics or an athletics check to leap off, and if they're and depending on don't take away their action if they roll low, unless they fumble perhaps, but if they beat the difficulty that you set, give them a plus to their damage for using the physical weight of their body, or if it feels right, give them advantage. So there's ways that just that simple rule of, if you get creative and tell and describe heroically what you're doing, I will give you a check against athletics or acrobatics or whatever it might be that might give you a bonus. And then it makes the player think about, I'm not just charging in and hitting them. I'm thinking about, how can I use the terrain? How can I use my party? How can I use tactics to increase my advantage? And even that in itself will change the player's perspective, because they'll look at the battlefield in a completely different way that they didn't before.
Rule of cool.
Rule of cool, yeah, absolutely. But
Another...
the important thing is, if they roll athletics, if they roll a 1, they might fall over. But if they roll low, they just don't get the bonus. Don't take their attacks away, because they're already that's all they've got. If you take that away, they've had no turn.
Another option. Sorry.
Yeah.
Another option, multi-classing. Although that may not be what they want to do, because ultimately then you just become a bit meh at 2 things as opposed to good at really one thing. But that's a discussion they could have.
And there's also what we did with Olaf. Do you remember?
We've done many things. Narrow it down.
Olaf was a fighter when we first created him in your Curse of Strahd game. He was a Psi warrior who I reskinned because it's Ravenloft. So instead of psionics, it was basically spirits that were binding to him. So all of his psionic abilities were described, again, to make combat more interesting. But I did get pretty bored of that quite quickly. So we had him disappear for a while, and he came back as a paladin. We respect him, right? And a paladin has got a lot more options. They are still largely hitting things, but they do have a bit of utility. They do have a bit of healing. They do, they just feel a bit deeper.
So, yeah, the first suggestion you came up with was maybe give them some magical items. My next question. A player took an item that was designed for another player. TLDR, a player asked for a specific magic item, and when I gave it to the party, it was taken by another player who really doesn't get any benefit from it. Not sure how to handle the situation. So I have a player at my table.
Did you post this?
No! So I have a player at my table. Let's call him Fighter. Fighter said at literally the first session that he would love a pyro converger. He said this a few other times, and I want him to be happy. So last session, when they killed the boss, they found one on his body. Another player, Druid, decided that flamethrowers are cool and took the item. While Fighter didn't say anything, but he looked really disappointed that the one magic item he's been begging for was taken by someone else. Now, I'm not sure why Druid decided he really wanted this item, since it goes against his build so hard. He's a plasmoid, and his whole build is, I fit in small spaces. The flavour I went with this item is it's a giant arm cannon that can't shrink. I was hoping the restrictions on the item would deter Druid, but he doesn't seem to care. Also, not sure if he knew the item was meant for Fighter, even if after he took the item, other members of the group kept saying how that item seemed to fit Fighter well. Not sure if I should step in and tell the Druid that the item was meant for Fighter, or if I should just let it play out and drop a second version of the item with different flavour in Fighter's lap later.
Well, the obvious answer is only make it usable by melee classes. Do not let non-melee classes use it. Have it restricted to fighter.
It's a
Have it
retcon
restricted
now,
to
though, so
Barbaria.
essentially.
Well, it is too late now, but I think ultimately if you want something to be used by a specific person, you need to make sure only they can use it, or do what Steve used to do in Icewind Dale with, for example, Cass's Mace of Disruption. After you completed a mission and solved got your revenge on the murderer of your father, the next day after a long rest, your mace was transformed and it was a Mace of Disruption, a blessing from your god. So that's a bit more difficult with a fighter. So you either need to directly have someone give it to them, whether that's a god or an NPC or whatnot. But if you're just going to drop it, you either need to be prepared that it won't go to the person that you're planning to, because everyone's different, and some players will just collect the shiny, regardless of whether it suits them or not. So the other option is you restrict it so it's only usable by the class you want to use it. Then it's into, do you just talk to the druid and say, look, that was put in for so and so. It'd be really nice if you give it to him.
We can assume the best. We can assume they didn't know, and they'll go, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. Here you go."
Is it me? Am I the drama?
But yeah, I think it just needs an above table chat. But like you said, it was a learning moment for me as a DM when I went, I want to gift this player this specific item, and then someone else took it because I just dropped it. That's where I learned about signposting, who things are for. So, like you said with Cass, it coming after a specific instance in the campaign, so that manages to communicate somehow that the item is intended for them.
Even if Steve dropped that in as loot, if that was only usable by a cleric or a paladin of Lathander, no one else can use it. It's just a normal mace if they use it. Yeah, and some players will be assholes and use it anyway, but there's always ways.
I'm not going to lie, Matt, I don't think you gave me that advice.
No, probably.
I definitely came to you for this advice.
I know. Well, I've had time to think about it since you asked me for the advice, because I know the instance you're talking about. So my character was cursed and was pretty much on half hit points. What were we, level 5, 6? And it was badly affecting my survivability. So you were like, here's an I think it was a helmet or something.
It was a helmet which gave you temporary hit points.
And you thought, I'll put that in, and then Matt will get that, and he will get a temporary boost on his hit points, which should make it more survivable. But unfortunately, another player saw it and was like, "Oh, that's nice. I'm having that." And
Fairly,
then you were
because
like,
I didn't think about the backstory of the item because of where it was placed. It belonged to long story short, a previous version of another character. So obviously there's ownership over it there. I had just looked at it as, this item that could be dropped here, I'm going to reskin to be a helpful item for Matt without thinking about that.
Yeah. Whereas and again, I appreciate you asked for this advice recently, and I've been thinking about it quite a lot, because I need to think about it for my games. You could have had, because we were in Vallaki, you could have had us meet with an NPC, and then one of the NPCs could have gone to absence. You look really sickly, you're affected by a curse. Give him a headband or something. Say, take this, it might help. And then you've directly given it to the character you intended it for, without having to worry. I think that's probably, reskin it, make it look like something fitting for the class that it's going to. Like you say, it's just signposting it. It is difficult though, because that fight is clearly disappointed, and some people will speak up and say, "Oh, I think it's better that I have that," and some people won't. And it sounds like the druid's the kind of person that will like, oh, I'll have that. That's cool, and probably won't spot that the other player's disappointed.
The issue here is sometimes you are just going to drop things.
Yeah.
That's just the way D&D works. You open a chest, you get into a vault, and in an ideal world, your players are going to go, oh, this looks like it makes sense for you, this looks like it makes sense for you, and they'll all be fair. What I worry about with the druid is if they're doing this now, are they going to keep doing that down the line? Like you said, you can do all of these things,
Probably.
but are they going to become a bit of a hoarder?
Yeah, it's quite common. If a player's not going to spot it or doesn't want to spot it, they're going to repeat that behavior unless you clearly articulate that's not for them.
I have an update.
Ooh.
I talked to the druid and found out that he and the fighter had talked about it outside of game. And druid is using the item temporarily until the fighter wants it. For flavour, I added some extra requirements to use the item. It's now a limb replacement. So fighter is waiting for the right time to hack off his own arm.
Cool. Well, that's a success story. They talked about it. So clearly the druid and the fighter have already talked about it. It sounds like the GM was worrying about a problem that he or she perceived, but that perhaps wasn't there. That's good.
Yeah, it's got a happy ending.
A point for communication, as always.
Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also join the live chat on Twitch at Bonus Action Heroes. If you want to suggest Reddit stories to cover, please comment below or join our Discord linked in the description.